Part 12 Complicated Love. One week later. Jenlisa is currently preparing to go on a business trip as well as a vacation. Ginny is clearly very excited. Ginny was busy putting some clothes into the suitcase while Lisa was sitting on the sofa with her eyes occasionally looking at her wife, who looked so happy. Suddenly the doorbell rang, and at the right time Jenny was closing her suitcase and then leaving. Ginny rushed to open the door of her house and saw Rose standing right in front of her with a big smile. "Wow, my best friend always looks beautiful, but unfortunately she's still single. Come on in," Ginny teased after hugging Rose briefly. "You always insult your best friend. Where is your husband?" asked Rose while looking around the house. "She's still in the room. Sit down first, I'll call him," Ginny replied, then left Rose in the living room. Rose just nodded in agreement while staring at Ginny's departure, and Ginny walked back to her room to meet her husband. "Who?" Lisa asked, looking at Ginny, who just entered. "Rose," answered Jenny. "Is everything ready?" asked Lisa again. "All right, let's go now," said Ginny very excitedly. "I remember again. Don't you and your friends ever bother me there," said Lisa, who stood right in front of Ginny with her serious look. "Yes, I already know. You don't need to tell me so many times," replied to Ginny. The three of them were in the same car. Lisa chose to drive herself, while Ginny and Rose sat in the back as if Lisa was the driver. Along the way, Ginny and Rose didn't stop talking. They reminisce about their old school days and occasionally laugh together. While Lisa's eyes watched Ginny's face from the review mirror that hung in front of her. He is very difficult to predict. In front of other people he is very quiet, but with his friends he is like crazy, Lisa thought. Suddenly Jenlisa's eyes met the reflection of the review mirror. Ginny very quickly changed her face. "Damn it, why did Lisa seem to be watching me earlier? Is she annoyed because Rose and I are noisy?" Ginny thought. "Rose, we better continue once we get there," whispered Jenny. Rose, who understood, just nodded, and finally they fell silent. Not long Lisa stopped her car, then the three of them got off at the same time. The workers who saw them immediately rushed to help take their luggage. Ginny, who couldn't wait to see the viewer, immediately pulled Rose's hand without paying attention to Lisa's gaze. "Wow, the view is really amazing," Ginny's spirit looked out. "Yes, Jen, it's really very beautiful," Rose agreed. "Hurry in," invite Lisa, who immediately walked first. Ginny and Rose looked at each other, then followed Lisa's footsteps. Suddenly they both accidentally saw someone she knew. Rose, who couldn't avoid it, stopped immediately. "Jen, isn't that Summy and that guy? He's a jerk who keeps coming to my house looking for you." Point to Rose slightly raised her voice. "Shut up," whispered Jenny. Lisa greeted Summy with a big smile. "What are you guys doing here?" asked Lisa, confused. "Hey sis, you're here too. We're both on vacation. What are you doing here?" asked Jisoo. Lisa was silent, not wanting to pay attention to Jisoo's question. She just looked at Jisoo, very annoyed. Jisoo also got up from his seat towards Ginny and Rose. "Hey girl, we meet again," greeted Jisoo, smiling friendly, looking at Rose. Rose, who was about to hug Jisoo, suddenly stopped because Ginny pulled her hand to continue her steps. Lisa was also about to go inside to put her luggage, but suddenly Jisoo stopped her. "Looks like you don't like Sami and I being here," said Jisoo. "You should have known what I like and what I don't like," Lisa replied, then left from there. "Jisoo, it seems like Lisa doesn't like us here," said Sami sadly. "Calm down, I really know how big sister is," Jisoo replied, while gently stroking Sami's back. Meanwhile in the room, Rose, who was still in awe of Jisoo and Sami's presence, immediately forced Ginny to explain everything. "Jen, speak quickly. Why are they here?" asked Rose curiously. "I don't know why they're here either. As far as I know, Sami is Lisa's girlfriend," Ginny replied, then sat her body on the bed. "What, Lisa's girlfriend? You're not kidding, right? Then why did she come here with Lisa's brother?" asked Rose again. "I'm serious. I don't know about them coming with me either," Jenny answered slowly. "Let's not talk about it anymore. We should move the clothes into the closet," said Ginny, who immediately stood up. "Wait," shouted Rose. "What else, Ross?" Jenny said with an annoyed chuckle. "You want a room with me?" asked Rose. "Yeah, who else would you like to share a room with?" answered Jenny. "But I don't want to share a room with you," Rose said quickly. "Why?" Jenny asked, confused. "Why? Gosh, Ginny, you're already married, so you should be in the room with Lisa and sleep with your own husband, not even here." Rose replied that she couldn't understand his best friend's attitude. "I don't want to let her sleep in his own room," Ginny replied indifferently. "ROS, our marriage was just a charade, so what for? Besides, I'm more comfortable sleeping with you," continued again. "Comfortable? Why don't you all say that you want to marry me more than stupid Lisa, which is clear we're both women?" Rose snapped. "Damn, that's not what I meant. I don't want to hear anything, and you need to remember carefully, even if your marriage is just a charade or whatever, your marriage is still valid," Rose said, a little pressing. "You should go to Lisa's room and sleep with her," coaxed Rose. "I do not want to," Ginny screams. "Jen, Sami is here. If suddenly Sami changes your position to sleep with Lisa, how about it?" asked Rose seriously. Ginny was silent for a moment, as if Rose's words threw a needle right in her chest without realizing she was holding her chest, but she quickly hid it. But unfortunately Rose, who was smart enough to "Let it be their business," says Ginny as if she doesn't care. No, come on, I'll take you to Lisa's room," said Rose, who immediately pulled Ginny's hand because she was tired of arguing. "Rose, don't tug. Okay, I'll be rooming with Lisa," Ginny said, trying to release Rose's grip, which was quite tight. "Well, that's it. Let me take you?" asked Rose with a happy smile. "No need. I can go there myself," Ginny replied, then left Rose's room. Ginny, who just entered the room, saw Lisa sitting on her bed. Lisa glanced at Ginny, who was carrying her suitcase. "Why are you here?" asked Lisa. Damn, what kind of question is that, Ginny thought. "Ah, looks like I'm in the wrong room," Jenny said, about to leave. "Didn't you already choose a room?" asked Lisa. How did she know? Damn it. It's all because of Rose. Gotta answer me now, Ginny thought. Why are you silent? Expelled by your friend, or afraid that Sumi will nod me? Lisa teases. Don't act like you know. Sumi bothers you or not. It's not my business. Ginny snapped, looking at Lisa sarcastically. Is that true? Lisa asked as she got up, and then approached Ginny. Here is your suitcase, asked Lisa. What do you want? Jenny asked, confused. I want to throw, Lisa answered, taking over Ginny's suitcase. I'll sleep in another room, said Jenny. Sleep here. Use enough room. Don't bother the hotel workers. Lisa glared at Ginny. Okay, Ginny answered after sighing. Ginny tidied her clothes in the closet, while Lisa lay with her eyes closed. Occasionally, Ginny watched Lisa from behind the cupboard. She must be very tired, Ginny thought. Suddenly, Lisa opened her eyes because she heard a knock on her bedroom door, and Summer's voice also called her name. What are you doing here? Asked Lisa, who had opened the door and looked at Sumi with her cold gaze. I want to invite you to enjoy the atmosphere of this place. It's been a long time since we've been here together. If I'm not mistaken, it's been 2 years, replied to Sumi. Ginny was about to leave the room, leaving Lisa and Sumi there because she didn't want to hear their conversation. For some reason, it felt very chaotic and even burned. Where are you going? Asked Lisa, looking at Ginny. To Rose's room, Ginny replied without looking at Lisa, and rushed from there. Lisa, how are you? Do you want to accompany me? Asked Sumi again. I'm not attracted. If there is nothing to talk about anymore, you better go. I'm very tired, just want to rest, Lisa snapped. Okay, sorry for bothering you, said Sumi sadly. Sumi left Lisa's room, while Ginny walked to Rose's room with a mind that was quite disturbed by Sumi's words earlier. It turns out that Lisa often brings Sumi here, Jenny thought sadly. Ginny, who was already in front of Rose's room door, went straight in without knocking. She saw Rose sitting dreamily near the window. Rose's daydream was broken instantly when she saw Ginny's sad face. What's wrong with you? Rose asked, frowning. There is not anything, Ginny replied with a small smile. You have a problem with Lisa again? Asked Rose again. No, Ginny answered with a smile and shook her head. ROS, how about we take a walk to the beach? I feel bored here, invite Jenny. Tomorrow, yes, Jen. Actually, I also feel bored, but I am very tired because of the trip earlier, Rose answered with a smile. Okay, you better rest. I'll go back to my room, Ginny said, leaving Rose from there. Rose just stared at the departure of Ginny, who walked out, and Ginny, who had just closed the door to Rose's room and was just about to walk, suddenly stopped because someone called her name. Ginny, I've been looking for you. It turns out you're here, Jisoo said, looking at Ginny. What are you looking for? Ginny asked, confused, looking at Jisoo's face. I want to take you to the beach. In the afternoon, like this, the view on the beach is very nice. Invite Jisoo. Next time, I'm not interested, replied Ginny to continue her steps. Ginny, wait a minute. I really want to talk to you, Jisoo said while holding Ginny's shoulders with her gentle gaze. Brother-in-law, please be polite, Ginny said, brushing off Jisoo's hands roughly. Don't call me like that, Jisoo shouted right in front of Ginny's face. You are my husband's brother, so I should have called you brother-in-law, pressed Jenny. "What are you two doing here?" asked Lisa, who suddenly came. "None of your business," Ginny snapped, leaving the two of them. Jisoo clenched his fists in anger, then left Lisa, who was still standing there. Lisa just stared at Jisoo's departure, then she took quick steps following Ginny's steps. "Hey, wild woman!" Lisa shouted, pulling Ginny's hand. "What is it?" Jenny asked, looking at Lisa. "Accompany me to the beach. Invite Lisa." "Wasn't Sumi accompanied by Sumi?" Jenny asked, surprised. "You talk too much. Come on quickly. Invite Lisa," ahead of Ginny's steps. "Okay," Ginny whispered. Arriving at the beach, Ginny ran to the edge of playing the waves. While running to and fro, she was very happy, while Lisa just silently watched Ginny from a distance. "Lisa, come here," Ginny screams. "No," reply Lisa shouted along. "You wild woman, this behavior looks like a child," Lisa mumbles, holding back a smile. Ginny sat pensively looking at the twilight sky. Occasionally the waves touched her feet and suddenly her face looked sad. Lisa, who saw it, decided to approach her. "Are you missing your papa?" asked Lisa, who was sitting beside Ginny and looking at Ginny's face from the side. "How do you know?" Ginny asked, turning her head to the side looking at Lisa's face. "Just guessing," Lisa replied casually, then looked straight ahead. "I really miss him. In my whole life this is the first time I've gone to the beach without my dad," Jenny said sadly, while looking up at the sky. "Really? Apart from your papa, have you never been to the beach with your lover?" Lisa asked curiously and turned back to the side. "No," Ginny answered, shaking her head. Ginny, who felt Lisa's gaze towards her, immediately looked back at her husband's beautiful eyes. Both of them stared at each other for a moment, and suddenly Ginny was embarrassed by herself. "Lisa, it's almost dark. Let's go back," invited Ginny, who immediately stood up. Lisa raised one hand and Ginny, who understood, immediately pulled it. They returned to the hotel. When they arrived at the room, they both took turns going into the bathroom to clean themselves. "Ginny, sister, let's eat together," Jisoo shouted from outside the room while knocking. "Yeah, you go first," replied Lisa after opening the door. "Ginny?" asked Jisoo. "Yeah, you guys go first. I'll call Rose first," Ginny said, leaving the room without looking at Jisoo. Lisa watched Jisoo, who kept looking at Ginny until she left the room. "Let's go," invite Lisa, who goes first. "Yes, sis," Jisoo said, following Lisa's steps. They are all sitting in the same place. Tonight Sumi looks very beautiful and elegant. Lisa can't stop looking at her. While Ginny watched Lisa, who was looking at Sumi, but Lisa knew that Ginny was watching her. Ginny immediately averted her gaze because Lisa glanced at her. "Sumi looks very beautiful tonight, huh?" Jenny whispered into Rose's ear. "You're beautiful too, Jen," Rose replied softly with a smile. "His name is also a friend. Everywhere will be beautiful friends," Jenny snapped. "You are really beautiful. Just ask your husband." "Miss Lisa, Ginny is beautiful, right?" asked Rose, looking at Lisa. Lisa was silent and looked at Ginny's face, while Ginny immediately stepped on Rose's feet and carried her there because she was embarrassed. "Oyo, it hurts, Jen," Rose groaned in a muffled voice. "Don't you embarrass me, stupid." Ginny softly tilted her head. Sorry, Rose really likes to say weird things, Ginny said, looking at Lisa with a clumsy smile. All right, let's continue eating, invite Jisoo. They started dinner as usual. Ginny wanted to get Lisa food, but the dining table was too big to make it difficult for Ginny because she was right in front of Lisa. Sam, you're closer to Lisa. You just get her food, asked Jenny. Okay, answered Summy, so excited. Lisa frowned and glared at Ginny, then she immediately stood up and left the table without a word. Lisa, where are you going? Ginny shouted, looking at Lisa, who didn't care at all. Ginny chose to follow Lisa, while the others just kept quiet while watching the two of them leave, then continued their dinner without jenlisa.